Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Yarmouth Select Board meeting of April 14th, 2026. I'm going to ask you to all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. And if you would all please just join me in a brief moment of silence as we reflect and think about our service members that are serving overseas and in harm's way today and in recent days. Thank you very much for that. I very much appreciate it. We're going to start our agenda with announcements. Is there anybody on the board that would like to make an announcement? Go ahead, Liz.
I just wanted to remind everybody, it's been pretty well advertised, but April 28th, town meeting in Yarmouth at the intermediate school, and everybody should come and use your vote, because that's where we make all the decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Joyce, do you have anything?
Just a reminder, April 25th, Town Cleanup Day. It's a Saturday. There's information about it on the town site, and it's an annual event.
Great. Mark?
Nope.
Bob?
One additional item that we have is to announce our Coastal Resiliency Fair and Parker's River Landing grand opening, which will be held Saturday, May 2, 2026, from 10 to 3 over at the new park that we have developed, and there's parking at Seagull Beach with a shuttle to be provided. Parker's River Landing.
Excellent. Anybody else have any announcements? Moving on to our 6:05 item, public comment. Is there anybody who would like to address the board? We'll take Zoom user. It's got to be Joe. Good evening.
Madam Chair, I thought I just fixed it, but I guess I didn't. Joe Glenn, South Yarmouth. Just quickly, one thing, I don't know if there'll be an update on it. I know it's not on the agenda, but some weeks ago, there was indication by the town administrator that there was some discussion about the regional agreement, and there was discussion that there could be a committee established. So I don't know if the town administrator will use that town administrator update time, and maybe we can address that. But I'm still concerned about it, and I hope other people are too. And because I don't know if I'll still be in tune during the public hearing, I just wanted to endorse Jameson Roy and the Roy family. They've done awesome jobs in the community. I know them from basketball. Jameson played with my sons, and his brother, who's been involved with the community and coaching as well as running establishments, and his dad. So I just want to make that endorsement. And then one final thing, lest we forget the anniversary of Sergeant Sean Gannon. I hope we never forget about it, but I just wanted to keep him and his family in our prayers, and not forget what they have done for our community. Thank you.
Absolutely, Joe. Thank you. As far as the regional agreement, when Bob made his comments, it was because I had asked for an update. I didn't get to watch the school committee meeting where they had the discussion, and that was just him conveying to us what had happened there. But it is in the school committee's hands. So.
And at that update, I was told that they would be in touch with us after the town meeting, so we won't.
So hold tight. Yep,
So,
great.
yeah, hold the thought.
Perfect. Thank you, Joe. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to address the board tonight? Okay. Seeing nobody, we are going to move to our 6:15 item. I see the Board of Health members here. Are you ready, or is it too early? I didn't know if you're waiting for anybody else. No. Okay, great.
We don't have many people, but we certainly have 3 or 4 people here.
Great, perfect. If you're ready, then we're ready. Otherwise, we can skip and come back if you'd like. All right, good evening.
Good evening.
Perfect. Thank you. If you don't mind introducing yourselves for the board, that'd be great, and for the public.
Yeah, I'm Hillard Bosky, obviously from the Board of Health.
Yeah, Larry Venetia from the Board of Health.
Mary Craig, Vice Chair, Board of Health.
Barry Lewis, the Assistant Health Director, Town of Yarmouth.
Great. Well, thank you all for coming this evening. As you know, we had some, as you know, because your committee meetings as well had a lot of public commentary on the nicotine-free generation discussion that you were having. So I was just wondering if you could kind of update the board of where you're at, where you've been, and then we'll have some dialogue.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, the board has discussing this nicotine-free.
Get close to the mic if you would, so we can hear you
Sure.
better. Thanks.
Better?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the board's been discussing this approach for nicotine reduction for 4 months. So that's why I think we're here to explain it to you. It's really a very simple, innovative approach to reducing nicotine use. And it's essentially fixed, it's based upon a fixed year of birth, okay? That's how they word it in the literature. And essentially anyone who is or has been born on that year or after would not be able to buy nicotine in a town.
And where did that promulgate from? Where did this come forward to the Board of Health from?
We were introduced to it, the whole concept from the tobacco control people from, Barnstable, as well as from Brookline. Who else came for the first meeting? December 1st was the meeting.
I can give a little bit more background on it, too,
Sure.
if you don't mind. Back in,
Nice and close to the mic.
closer? Okay. Back in 2003, the World Health Organization, its very first health treaty was on tobacco control. The United States signed it in 2004. It had a number of best practices, evidence-based practices that they felt would stop people from smoking tobacco. It obviously wasn't enough. In 2010, some academics came up with the concept of a nicotine-free generation, hoping that that would be the end game for cigarette smoking of tobacco, rather, with all of the morbidity and mortality that it causes, all the economic loss. Then up to 2017, I think, the Philippines, Bataan City there was the first place in the world to institute nicotine-free generation. It had significant results. However, they had not put all of the other best evidence practices in place. And by 2018, as you might imagine, the local tobacco lobby had contested it legally, and so it kind of has stood there. In early 2025, there was a Senate there were Senate and House bills introduced in Massachusetts to implement nicotine-free generation. There was a public health hearing in July of 2025, and as many bills happened to many bills, it was remanded to study, and that's where it is as of right now. Hawaii and Massachusetts are the two states in the country that are considering nicotine-free generation. Interestingly, Beverly Hills in California has banned all tobacco sales, period. No nicotine-free generation, just nobody can buy tobacco in that city. So that's kind of the background. It didn't just kind of bubble up, but it's, that's some of the history of it. And then it was brought to us, like Hill had said, by our regional tobacco control person, because it had come before the state legislature.
Okay. And are there, I'll let you finish before I ask my questions. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Howard, sorry.
Just going back in history, it was way back in 1964. There was a report to the Surgeon General of that time that linked smoking to some devastating diseases. And it's the first time it was really public in this country. And since that time, there's been a tremendous effort to educate the public, certainly a lot in the school system. And there's also been some changes. I mean, I don't know if anyone's old enough to remember smoking here on airplanes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, welcome. Anyway, I remember this. There was a curtain, between the two sections, and that was one of the first places smoking was banned, and it was only for short flights, because on long flights, people were complaining of withdrawal from nicotine. Eventually, as you know, you can't smoke on the planes. And in addition, the issue is in public arenas of any kind. You can't smoke any longer in restaurants, at work. I mean, in the winter, I took somebody to the hospital here, and outside I see people, it's January, outside with their scrubs on, smoking. And there's some other measures. The age changed, right, from 18 to 21. If you think back, magazines, Life magazine, as we were growing up, there were very cool ads in there. You had professional football players in the locker room smoking, selling, that was a good idea. The cigarette packs, the large font gives a warning about health. And you just don't drive up to Boston and see the billboards anymore with, advertising smoking. It's mostly the law firms now we see. It's and one thing that's kind of different here is with most of the bans or regulations we have in town, there's a start date. So, the most relevant right now, I guess, is the plastic reduction regulation. It started on January 1st of this year. So certain plastics were absolutely banned. And the same way is a day they can't smoke in some public buildings. It just starts that day. This approach is quite different. As I said, it's based upon that fixed year of birth that some town would pick and decide that, someone who is born on that year or after would not be able to buy nicotine in that town. Anyone born before the year that would be selected can buy any nicotine product they want for the rest of their life. So it's a very gradual process. This is, if a town takes this on, it's decades of time. And it's really looking out for future generations, as the name is. It's looking out. It's for our children, our grandchildren, our nephews, nieces. It's looking out for their health and actually prolong their life. As you know, smoking really reduces life expectancy. So I can stop there. We're here for answering questions. That's what we're here.
That's, and I appreciate the update. And I'm very well aware that the Board of Health has its own authority under the state in terms of what it's allowed to do. I guess my question is more, how many other communities has this passed in, and why Yarmouth and why now? We heard from a lot of people in the public, and I don't think there's anybody who's going to dispute the fact that smoking's bad for you, and there's proven statistics. I mean, we all know that. I think the state did a really good job of educating people and has reduced smoking significantly since I was younger. So, I'm always a fan of educating and trying to get people not to smoke. I don't understand the need for this when the argument was alcohol is bad. Junk food is bad. So why are we sectioning out one portion, one item in a realm of a lot of things? The state invested a lot of money in educating people. We in Yarmouth, I don't think has had a problem with our vendors or our stores selling to minors. I guess I just would like to hear the rationale as to why Yarmouth and how the board has had discussions about, if it's Yarmouth, unfortunately, it's just like the plastic ban, right? And I've said it in public several times. I'm sorry. I go to dentists to shop. You brought it up, so I just have to say that that's what happens. That you're not going to stop somebody from smoking. You're just going to give the money to another community. So I guess that's the type of rationale. No, please, we don't need to do that. But that's the rationale that I see it as, and I think a lot of our businesses see it as. So I think that's kind of like the discussion that we would like to try to help everybody understand where your thought process is on that.
To make this most productive, you said a lot of things, and it would be helpful to have individual questions that,
Well, why Yarmouth and why now? That's my first question.
well, I can
Why?
start.
Here.
Well,
We're here. I mean,
Yeah, but why?
you
why
wouldn't
are
want the
you-
Yarmouth Board of Health to be messing with.
No, but why?
welfare.
Why our community?
well, you've entrusted us to protect the health of the residents of the town as well as the environment. I can tell you, you have 4 health providers on your board right now, okay? And we also gifted with a hydrologist. So that's the board right now. So that is our mission. That's our responsibility. So that's Yarmouth. So
Are there any other communities on the Cape or near in Massachusetts that have passed this?
not at this time.
So when,
The,
42 in Massachusetts.
yes,
Into Massachusetts, but none on the Cape.
correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And it's always, with public health, it's always a balance. We're always thinking about personal rights as well as business, but the health always overrides those concerns.
Right, and I understand that. Like I said in my comments, my comments is, we understand you certainly have the knowledge, and nobody is debating the fact that nicotine's bad for you. So, and I know that that's within your purview. It's just a difficult situation for our business owners that will lose significant funding because people are going to choose to go somewhere else. And again, one of my other questions is why nicotine and not the other things that are bad for you? I mean, if public health is there's so many items that would fit under your purview of things that are bad for you. It just is, you talked about it, personal freedoms, right? I would rather be on the side of educating people and trying to focus that way as opposed to banning things. That's my personal opinion, but I'll let the rest of the.
I have a question about the logistics of this, Tracy. At the moment, the minimum age for purchasing tobacco is 18, 21?
Using tobacco?
Okay, so,
To
is,
purchase,
so-
anyone
Not
can use it.
produce, yeah.
so if this were enacted, say for 2028, it wouldn't have any effect on the profits of local businesses until 21 years after 2028, right?
It's, as he said, it's progressive, so it would start there, and then the next year it would stay the same, so it would impact anybody going forward, yeah.
But nothing though for 2 decades.
No, that's not.
No, not really.
There's something I'm not understanding here.
So it's important to keep in mind the fixed year that would be picked. So in other words, if someone's coming to the store, you need to look what year were they born in. Just to make it easier, think of it if a town selected the year 2000, I guess 2006,
It's what they selected.
that is the cutoff. So someone who was born before that can buy nicotine products for the rest of their life. Someone born on that year or after would not be able to.
I see. So you're not starting with a year in which people will be born. You're starting with the already born,
Yeah,
but you have a choice of what year to start.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. You know, and this was brought up, I mean, it's almost open here. I mean, we've had a number of meetings, and it's been great. There's a lot of participation, certainly a lot of people from the business section of the town. That sector has had a terrible year. The store is along 28, and we recognize that. It's tough balancing it, which Mary had mentioned. You're talking about selling products that are toxic and cause cancer on one side of it, and versus local businesses. They're both valid issues. So it's a judgment call. It really is. What's unique about this approach is it's so gradual. It's going to take decades before all individuals would not be able to buy nicotine. And the state has waited for many towns to put things into effect before the state took any action on things. And that would be flavored tobacco, would be the age to purchase. State, it's tough. I mean, we went to a conference recently, and that they mentioned that on Beacon Hill there's 6,000 to 8,000 bills each term, and only 3% of them get debated. That doesn't say where the vote's going to go. So it's tough to get things accomplished at Beacon Hill. It is, and understandably so. There are a lot of needs, and there are, you know, a lot of inquiries and a lot of things that people want done by the state government. So in Massachusetts, what's happening with the health issues, very often it's town by town, certainly associated with tobacco. The state has done a great job or a terrible job, depending upon how you want to look at it, is the tax rate. I don't know, it's like, I think, like $12 a pack. And, you know, it's thousands and thousands of dollars that someone who smokes cigarettes on a regular basis. Someone smokes a pack a day, it's over $4,000 a year. It's an addiction. Despite all the measures that have been taken, I think in the country, it's 18% of people still use nicotine. Here, it's between 12 and 15% in the state of Massachusetts. Despite all these measures, are still using nicotine. Nicotine is very addictive. It's more addictive than heroin. It's more addictive than alcohol, cocaine. It's very, very difficult to get off of it. The withdrawal is not pleasant.
Joyce, you have any other questions?
I'm doing all the speaking.
I was just going to ask.
You still have the floor.
I just would like to ask a follow-up. With the 22 towns in Massachusetts, do you have a sense of where, in terms of choosing the year for the enactment to start, and choosing the birth year involved, have most of them chosen the year of birth that would represent young children right now?
It's basically it's not the year that they're turning 21 right then. It's a few years back. Like if we do I don't think we could do the 2006 because we're already that'd make them already 21. It would be 2007. So that still gives them 4 or 5 years before they're even turning 21 before they could start purchasing. Not that. You're correct. The 2007. So that's what we could choose any year we want to get it started to enact it.
But we don't know. We don't know
Yeah.
what year the other cities and towns have set. Brookline was the first, and it was contested in court, and the Supreme Judicial Court did say that it was a legal initiative.
So since that was in 2021, and it was in court for 2 years, and so no other towns did it. And once after the 2 years, since 24, all the other towns have joined in, have done it. So, and you asked why Yarmouth. Yarmouth has been a front runner for tobacco initiatives in the state. Flavor Tobacco 21. Somebody has to start. It's this great group of medical people we have on the Board of Health that has been the initiative for it. So,
Joyce, you have any other questions?
I just wondered if you see a possibility for, choosing a date that would maybe be one where everybody on that date who was born in that year would, say, be 10 years old now, for a more gradual launching? Or do you think it's important to go for mid-teenagers, which sounds like what's been done? But I realize that, there's a quality question too, a quality of life, and, that would keep probably more people from smoking.
So Joyce, it might be a little confusing, but right now, it starts at the age of 21. So that's what they're going towards, that age, to whatever the.
Oh, that I get. It's the assignment of the birth date year.
Right, but that's what correlates to that year, was when they turn 21. If they're born in 2006, they would be turning 21, so it would start with that.
And I'm wondering kind of how set in stone the 2006 is, if you see what I mean?
She's saying when it was.
I do, but
2003.
doing it at 10 years old wouldn't make sense, because it's already banned under 21, is what I'm just trying to make sure you understand, yeah.
I'm just trying to think, I did watch the Board of Health hearing from home, and I'm aware that many local businesses brought up the whole question of the impact of the sewers on their stores. And, we all know, and, secretly pray, but we do all know that that's not going to be forever. And so I was just trying to ponder whether if it were a slower, by choosing a later birth year, if it was a slower adoption, whether that would be something that would be easier for people to handle. But I was curious to see if anyone had started with a very young age, and it seems other towns have not particularly gone that way. And that's my last follow-up. So Liz, your turn.
Okay.
I think Joyce has a point in that what we could do is consider putting this mandate off a couple of years because of the sewer situation. It's been discussed with the board that that's an option. And I understand what you're getting at, and we've thought about that, and that's a reasonable thing to think about.
Compromise.
The other point is with tobacco, is that with the other items you mentioned, with tobacco, there's more than one victim. It's not only the person who smokes the tobacco, but there's extensive evidence that secondhand smoke causes quite a bit of damage. I've seen it in my practice. It causes a lot of chronic issues in pets. People don't think about that, but I've seen numerous cases of chronic bronchitis, chronic pulmonary disease in pets through people who smoke. So that's just one difference between alcohol and tobacco. Other items you mentioned, that there's more than one victim here with tobacco. And the other point is, there are 2 points that I've never met one person in my life that wished they never started smoking. The other thing is, I've never met any mothers that would ever put a date on when they'd like to see their child start smoking. So those are 2 issues that sort of I've thought about.
Thank you.
I gave a more of a discussion at a couple of meetings. I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but there's such a plethora of chronic disease that smoking causes, both for animals and for people, that I feel it's a worthwhile mandate to consider.
Well, if you can consider cancer a chronic disease, for some people it's not.
It isn't.
Yeah.
But there are a myriad of
There are other
chronic
things, yes.
diseases that
Right.
we don't even think about that are associated with tobacco.
Right.
One of my thoughts is, like you said, you go to Dennis to get your bottle of water. If we can prevent one kid from going and not buying tobacco products, to me that's a win. And I'm not trying. We're never gonna stop people from going to Dennis from Barnstable to wherever, but it would be a win. I don't buy bottled water anymore because of the ban. I have a big jug. I don't go across, so that's a win. So we're not looking to solve the whole problem. We're looking to
I'm not
solve.
arguing that point at all. I think, again, everybody knows that it's bad, but so is vaping, right? We sell vapes. If we can stop one person from smoking marijuana, I just feel like we have a lot of significant health issues. And we've made such good progress on this that, that wouldn't be my focus, but I'm just one person, Liz.
I've had a huge history with nicotine, marijuana. My father died from lung cancer, never could quit smoking. I remember distinctly finally quitting. Such a battle in my 30s because I was pregnant and it was time. And started smoking when I was 15 because I grew up here. That's what you did. And it was wonderful. It was great fun.
It was a cool thing to do.
It was, yeah. I miss it horribly. I love it when somebody lights up a cigarette outside and I smell it. It's like, oh. But I also want to, before I say anything, Barry, Mary, Hill, and I'm sorry, I'm not as familiar. Larry. So impressed with what you've done and working with you on the plastics ban. I know how dedicated and how important health is, and this is a huge issue. However, I have been so impressed by the group of people who have made the effort to get here. There's at least 18, and there's probably I can see somebody on Zoom as well. And this is their second trip here. And we in Yarmouth, I think we're a special case because of the sewering, but also because we have the biggest, Barnstable and Yarmouth have the immigrant population. And this has been a solution for this group of people. I mean, I'm sure many of them were born in America, but there's a distinct look that is of an immigrant type that has made a way in America thanks to these stores. And so that's a Yarmouth, I think that's a Yarmouth reality that we need to embrace. And that goes back to Tracy saying, why Yarmouth and why now? I respect the idea that we're a front runner and we've done so many things in this area, but I think I want to cut them a break because they're dealing with an awful lot of issues, and they are a commercial enterprise, and boy, do we need commercial enterprises in Yarmouth right now more than ever. So although I couldn't be more anti-smoking, my son is 39, and his wife is pregnant. He just quit, and it was a huge battle. And he was a vapor and a smoker and, every type of tobacco. So I get it on both sides. I'm so torn, but I feel like it almost ties in with the fairness resolution. Yarmouth is taking a sort of a big stand for this fairness resolution because we recognize we have an immigrant population. And I think that almost is part of it. We also need to recognize that these people, I shouldn't say that, that's so wrong for me to say, these people, we all need to make a living. And in this case, this is what they've chosen, and I don't want it to start here. I think there's going to have to be a gradual reformation, and they will have to kowtow. We will all have to kowtow, but I just don't want to have to do this to the people who are running the quick stops and so on here in Yarmouth. That's my statement. Thank you.
Dorcas?
I'm embarrassed to say I don't know about the fair resolution. What is that?
There's a resolution that's going to the ballot box, and I am a supporter, so I want to make sure I make that clear before it's, the words of the Constitution are being lifted, and we are being asked, Barnstable Town Council approved it unanimously. It's hit a wall here in Yarmouth because people are a little bit afraid that it is a way of saying we want to open the borders and become a sanctuary city, which is not the intention. But it is a constitutional words being reaffirmed to immigrants who are trying to become legal.
You don't know that.
yeah.
That's an assumption, but
It
it's not on the agenda. There
It's an assumption, and so that's why we can't talk about it.
Good evening. I want to thank you for your hard work. I know how dedicated you are and how much thought I'm sure you put into your stand and being here tonight, but I'm asking you to really try to reconsider the businesses in this town. May I ask again, how many towns have passed this statewide?
22, I believe.
22. Okay, so that means there are 329 towns in the state that have not passed it. Do we have to be at the beginning of the pack? I want you to think about it. Our businesses are being hit on all sides. I mean, this has really, our economy has been hurt. We don't see the tourism that we used to see on the Cape. We don't see, we have businesses that have informed me that they're having trouble making their rent because of the construction that's been going on, and they are one by one going out of business because do we want it's like we're putting all these things, like we have to do the sewer, so we have to dig in front of your property. We're going to put all kinds of signs out that say we're open during, businesses are open while we're going through this process. But unfortunately, there's just no way sometimes to get to that business. We lost an appliance store in town specifically, and they said specifically because of the sewers. So that's a burden that they have. Then on top of that, as I say, we're not seeing the tourism as much here anymore. That's another burden on top of them. Do we want to drop another one? I mean, why do we have to be number 23 out of 351 towns in this state? Couldn't we wait a while? Couldn't we, at the same time that we're waiting, though, couldn't we really step up our education process to educate everyone at the dangers of smoking? I mean, really start a program cooperative with the schools, to really, get at the root source, not letting them start. Because what happens is you say, well, it's a gradual process, but let's say you do put it into effect, all right? Like Tracy, who goes off and gets her bottle of water in another town, other people are going to do that. And when they do that, they're not just going to buy their cigarettes. Mm-hmm. They're going to then buy everything else that they need to buy. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to buy what they need to buy in our town. It's tough. And this is just not a good time. I mean, I'm coming in today to this meeting hearing about the increase in inflation, it just keeps going on. So please, I would encourage you. I understand it. Believe me, I lost my younger sister. I lost my sister when she was only 45 years old to lung cancer. Oof. And it was from cigarettes. And I hate them. But I don't think that now's the time for us to take a stand. And I please entreat you to think about that. Thank you.
Mark?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I, too, echo the sentiments of my fellow board members about the great work that you do as a Board of Health.
Yes.
We've been through a lot together. We've had our challenges in the community, and we've been well served by you. Now, I do most of my shopping in Yarmouth. I don't go to Dennis. I like shopping in Yarmouth. And from my discussions with business owners, just about everybody, particularly on the 28 corridor, has taken a real hit. It's been pretty hard. Some will say that business is down between 30 and 50%. And if you're a small business and you're on the margins, that's a huge financial loss. That's a huge burden. And what we're talking about here today is a measure that will certainly impact the convenience stores. And the convenience stores have been taking a big hit. And their margins are probably thinner and slimmer than probably a lot of other businesses in terms of their ability to survive. So I look at the issue as not just a health issue, but I too share the concerns of my fellow board members that this could be another really serious hit to our small business community. And we've already lost a lot of businesses. I mean, the reality is we've seen a number of them go under. And for me, it's been, and many of these people are friends, people that I've grown up with, people that I've known for years. And when you see your friends, when you see your neighbors basically lose their business and go out of business, and then you contemplate what the impacts of this might be, I don't think this community can deal with any more losses or blows to the small business community in this town. I really don't think so. So I join with my fellow colleagues and urge you and encourage you, beg you, if that's an appropriate term, but really to put this off and to spare us and to help our business community weather the current storm that they're in right now, because the sewer construction's not over for a while. And I just don't think we can take any more hits to our small businesses here in the town of Yarmouth. And this will be devastating to many. And I know of that because like I said, I spend a lot of time using our small businesses and visiting, and this is what I hear. This is what I pick up. And so I'm just sharing with you my observations that I think right now is not the time to be doing this at all. And so thank you.
Thank you. Again, we understand that it's within your purview, and I think it's a very well-intended, but I'm very concerned about the negative impacts that it would have. So is there any response or anything you would like to add, Taylor?
Yeah, I mean, that's one reason we've been discussing this for 4 months, okay? Very unusual. We don't do that. One thought I had was the other night, Dunkin' Donuts came in to the meeting looking for a variance for their plastic products. And presented a good case for it. But what I was thinking about after the meeting was what's happened to Dunkin' Donuts. They used to be a donut shop. And sales were going down. They changed their business plan. That's what they did. You can walk in there now and get a fluff of this. You can get almond. You can get soy milk. You can get 2 shots of espresso in it. They're meeting the needs, and the margins are great with that, as opposed to getting a coffee with milk. So that's how they're making up for profits that way. They're increasing their revenue, better margins on certain products. I mean, they're copying what happened at Starbucks, which was a success story, needless to say. So, I mean, I question, are there business plans and are people looking at them? The stores that haven't, they do go out of business. Products become obsolete. You need to bring people in. And I don't know if that takes place or has taken place with the stores we're talking about tonight.
Well, I've seen it, right? We talked about vapes briefly. That was one of the things that a lot of them bring in as younger kids and new things come. Is that any better than nicotine? Absolutely not. So, but I appreciate that. I think that every business owner, I'm sure, is doing what they can in these very difficult times to stay relevant and, when you think about Dunkin' Donuts, I think that they're fortunate to have a big corporate, they've got a lot of money for marketing, and, our single owners aren't, they don't have that kind of money to invest in marketing I think any business owner is always looking at their business plan, right? I mean, we've put a lot of things on them over the years, as Barry has already mentioned, right? They've been through it with us and with you, with menthol and, all the things that we've done. And I think in a different situation, in a different economy, without what's happening, I'm sure they would probably be trying to adapt. And I think they're just stretched to the max right now, and they can't do any more right now until, they get past this. So I don't know. I'm sure they're looking at it, and I appreciate that comment. I don't know if you can compare those, a big corporate to some of our individual business owners, but I think giving them some time. Again, I'm all about education. I'm all about educating people, getting people to try not to smoke. But unfortunately, the reality is, people are, as you said, it's a very addictive drug, right? People are going to get it, right? They're just going to go somewhere else to get it, and that's an impact. That's going to impact our businesses. And again, I know you're looking at it from your perspective of health, and I completely appreciate that, and I know that that's what you're focused on. I think our focus here is more of a balance and looking at all of the sides. And in a perfect world, nobody would smoke. In a perfect world, our youth wouldn't be vaping and doing drugs, and we wouldn't have an alcohol problem. We wouldn't have a heroin problem. We wouldn't have an obesity problem. But we do. We have all of those things, unfortunately. And some of them need some significant attention. And, I would love to see us focus on getting our young people not to smoke marijuana. But in any event, here we are. Right? And
Just make one comment?
yeah, of course you
And
can.
maybe I didn't give the best example of Dunkin' Donuts. When I look at the smaller coffee shops in town, you go in, they have all kinds of other products that they are selling. It could be tomato sauces, it could be things, certain kinds of foods and to eat, take it home, cheeses. They have all kinds of products now which they didn't used to. They're bringing in. There's a coffee shop near us. There's a line going out the door in the summer. They came up with some creative drink in there.
A fluffy seagull.
Thank you. Okay. You don't have to go to the other town to get it. So anyway,
He's also got deep pockets.
I think you have new things, what will draw people in. And products is a big part of it, of new products that these places are selling. And they're individually owned. So that would be a better example, I think, of thinking outside the box of what else is going to bring customers in, what do customers want.
Madam Chair? Yeah. I think one of the things that strikes me in all of this is individual municipalities sort of taking this on themselves. Dorcas had mentioned we have 351 cities and towns here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And by picking on one community or a small number of communities, what we're doing is we're sort of disadvantaging those, putting the businesses in like our community at a significant disadvantage. Doesn't it make sense to be doing a policy like this statewide or nationwide with a much larger community and phasing it in so that people do have the time to adapt? If I were interested in going in this direction, that's the approach that I would recommend the Commonwealth take, rather than pushing individual communities to kind of take this on their own. I think it would be far more responsible to do this, across the board, throughout an entire region, put everybody on the same playing field and give everybody a certain amount of time to make the transition. Doesn't that make sense?
I think it makes sense, but what we have heard is that in Massachusetts, Many times, the legislature is looking at what the towns are doing, and when there's a certain critical mass, they are willing to take on that kind of a big issue.
Yeah, not only that, they get the lobbyists, right? But when you think about the paper bag ban, right? How many municipalities did that? And now it's been probably 3 or 4 years solid since many communities have done it. Now the state's looking to make a statewide policy around that. So there's a lot of truth.
You
to
talking
that.
paper bags or plastic
Yeah,
bags?
Paper
plastic
instead
bag.
of
Plastic bags, yeah. Because I don't have a problem getting a paper bag at the.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, but you know, but
Yeah.
to her point, that was something that was started on the municipal level. It went almost like wildfire through all the
Yeah,
communities.
but my response to that is so it's bad public policy. Why should we? If it's bad public policy, it's bad public policy. I just don't think it makes sense to allow to put the communities in a situation where they have to sort of step up on their own. I think I'd rather see it done statewide. And the legislators have been hired to do a job. They should stand tall. And they should do
Good luck
their
with
job.
that.
We should not be doing their job for them. And again, no. But the thing is what we have also done as a matter of state policy as well is if we're going to disenfranchise or somehow have an impact to a class of businesses in a state, some of the things that we do is we at least in the past, as long as I've been involved in public policy, we've acknowledged the fact that there is an impact and typically have provided help to businesses to make a transition.
Right.
And so we're just sort of taking this up on our own without any resources, without any support. And then, I just don't, this town by town approach is just bad public policy. And just because it's the only approach still doesn't make it any less bad. Right? It's bad. We just shouldn't be doing this. Our legislators should be stepping up, doing their job. If they want to promote a much healthier environment, and this is the way they want to go, don't stick it on each individual town to do this. Do it in a much broader way. That's my argument. And when our legislators come here, for their regular updates with us, I'm happy to, join with my colleagues in getting that point across to them. This is not the way to go. It really isn't. And I think what it does is it creates a certain level of cynicism in terms of government overall. We should be finding ways to restore faith in government, restore faith in policy. And again, I'm not attacking the merits of what you're trying to do in dealing with nicotine and addiction, but there are ways to go about it that make much more sense. Yeah, and in the meantime, let's work together on the education side. I mean, we do have grant funds that we make available to the Board of Health to do all sorts of, good things to protect the health of our residents. Why not allocate some of that money for an expanded education program that we can work on together? I mean, that's something that I would recommend. Or maybe we have this conversation at town meeting. Maybe there's an article where we increase that appropriation. But I think there are other ways we should try first before we go down this road.
At DY High School, there's 250 16-year-olds right now. Let's say all 250 live actually here in the town of Yarmouth. 10% of those smoke. That's 25 potential smokers by the time they turn 21. We have 27 tobacco licenses in town. That means each tobacco licensee will lose one customer a year. That's it. And then they'll grow eventually. That's one customer per establishment.
Joyce, do you have something to say?
Oh.
We're not, no.
A counter to the state getting involved here. There is a disincentive, I think, for the state to get involved, and I think Hill mentioned, you said $12 a pack that they're getting in revenue from cigarettes. So they may be disincentivized to jump on something like that because they're going to lose that $12 a pack. Do you think that would have anything to do with it? That they may be a little reticent to pass a law or a mandate that would look like this?
It may. I don't discount that, but I still think that there are better ways to do policy.
I agree.
Joyce?
Well, I think good things start small. I'm so glad that you have investigated this and thought of a way to reduce smoking in a gradual way. I guess I'm fully in support of the effort, and my only question would be, could you think of a later start date? Like, say, if the start date were 2016, you'd be dealing with 10-year-olds right now. All the gentlemen behind you would have 10, 11 years to adjust business practices and business missions, and the sewers would be done on the main streets so that you wouldn't have that anymore. I mean, it's at the point where I can imagine, you would wish to sell almost anything just to keep the store open, and that's humanly absolutely understandable. And we need to think of the economic health of the community as well as the bodily health. But I would love to see us put this in as a practice with a later start date, say like 2016, and I think that would be agreeable to most people. I mean, we could wait for the state to do something, but I mean, kids are going to start smoking and dying before the state does anything. And I'm so glad that you've jumped on this.
I'll make it quick. I know we've beaten this to death. I just want the audience at home to know that every time we talk about the state doing something, our attendees here are like, yes. And when we talk about smoking being so bad for you, there isn't a single person out there who doesn't agree. But it is what is allowed. And I go back to how Tracy started this whole commentary by saying, why Yarmouth? Why now? And that's where I come right back. Why Yarmouth? Why now?
While construction is going on 28, just think of the number of cigarettes that could be sold to workers, but then be like kind of working toward getting rid of it for kids who were born 2016 or later.
If you tell a child no, they're going to go find a way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
If you educate a child on what the outcome could be, you're going to get a much better outcome with that. And I like the idea of what Mark's talking about is maybe we step up and do a much more aggressive campaign
new
of
library.
education about the dangers of smoking. I mean, I don't see as many ads on TV anymore that I used to.
They're against the law.
Yeah, I mean, so if they're not, if the kids aren't going to learn it that way, then let's really, maybe like there's a monthly seminar, a monthly discussion in the schools that the kids go through about talking about it. Maybe just bringing forward for them some of these people who are willing to do that, who are cancer survivors or who are debilitated. That makes a whole big difference more, I think, to a child than just flat out saying no.
Yes, agreed.
So please consider that. Thank you.
I was wondering too about, what Dr. Venesia said about the secondhand. I mean, I'm an ex-smoker and I can't stand it, but you see people in their vehicles with the windows closed and children or animals, and it absolutely drives me bananas. Like, to me, that's something that, that's unfair. It's not right. And that is something I wish we could spend a little time focusing on, how to teach people that kind of, you'd think it's common sense, but you see it, and it blows my mind. It's crazy. It's bad. But anyway, we've discussed this enough. We very much appreciate you coming in and listening to us. As much, I know you've had several meetings. We've heard from a lot of people. I know I've heard from a lot of people about their concern for this. So we appreciate any consideration that you could give it to take both, as was mentioned, the economic health into consideration as well.
everybody.
No, we appreciate
thank
you.
you.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity, yeah.
Taking the time.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. I see people's hands up. This is not a public, that was not a public hearing, or we're not taking public input on that. They will have their time to make their vote, and we just wanted to make sure that we had a discussion about it. So we appreciate everybody coming and listening.
Next item is a hearing.
Yeah,
Longfellow's Pub. Any strong feelings?
yep. You can leave it with the town administrator, and he can distribute it to us if it's something that you think that is important for us to read. We appreciate your participation and being here. Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is a hearing for a change of manager from Mindy Lynn Lawrence to Jamison Roy. RCR Management, DBA Longfellow Pub, Old Townhouse Road, South Yarmouth. Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Roy and Mr. Roy. Thank you for coming this evening to talk about the change in manager. I know you've worked with Amy here. We have your certificate of insurance. We have your application that is complete. And just very much, I see you're tip certified.
Yep.
Which is great. If you would like to just introduce yourself for the record and talk a little bit about your experience and what it is that you're trying to accomplish here tonight, that would be great.
My name is Raymond Roy. I've owned and operated for the last 45 years 3 or 4 restaurants in the town of Yarmouth. It's time for me to step back, and it's time for my son, who's 25 years old. He ran Salty's for 2 years for me, and then he went off to work at Latham Centers after going to college. And now it's time for him to take over Longfellows. And basically, that's it.
All right. So I saw that you met with the police department.
Yeah, I did.
You are familiar with our rules and regulations and what the expectation of a license holder and a manager is.
Yep.
Okay, and that we do take our liquor licenses very serious. It's a heavy obligation that you have to make sure that everybody stays safe, and you are able to recognize people, not being overserved, and that people are being overserved. So with that, I'll ask if anybody on the board has any questions for the applicant. You
No,
plan
I'm
on
fully
doing
supportive. Thank you.
Yes, great. You plan on doing anything different with?
I think over time, I think the biggest thing is we don't want to scare any of our customers away or our employees. Change can be hard, so we'll make some changes like over time, like I said. But right now, everything's the same operations.
Still gonna have prime rib?
every day.
Yes, that's the important question.
That's
There you
the
go.
most important one.
And then I'll make a motion, Madam Chair, now that we got that established.
Well, thank you for coming. You go ahead.
Yeah, I move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion on that?
I would just add that you also have a reputation for one of the cleanest restaurants in Yarmouth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
I believe for prime rib as well.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yep.
also the cleanliness,
Every day,
yeah.
Appreciate it.
day a
Thank
week
you.
anymore.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. We wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
We hope you have a great season.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item is a shellfish aquaculture lease application from Christian Hayes, DBA East Bar Oyster Company for a proposed aquaculture lease in Cape Cod Bay. Good evening. Good evening again.
Groundhog Day.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the application.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, well, thank you. We're not even gonna look that gift horse in the mouth.
But we're glad to see you, even though you didn't get to introduce yourself.
We wish you the very best of success. I know it's
He
been
did last
it's
time.
been a long-term investigative process for you, and we just we hope everything works out great and wish you the best of luck.
Yeah, if I could just add a footnote, there are clearly some questions and issues that we have to get resolved, but none of this is a burden on you. I mean, we're going to have to deal with what those are, And we've been given every assurance that those issues will be cleared up. But you should be okay from us to go forward.
Thank
right.
you, Mr. Hayes. Thank you.
Just to be clear, you guys have the copy of that, right?
Yeah, and we signed it already.
It's in the red folder. Bob has it, or Mary Alice will have it tomorrow. Thank you very much. Thank you. Sorry to keep you waiting for that. All right, next we're going to have a discussion on our annual town election warrant and a designation of the police assignment to the police chief and the town clerk. And look who's here. Good evening. Voila.
Perfect timing, Mary.
evening.
Jeez.
Knows how to do it.
Yeah,
She does. She
shows
sits
up always
upstairs.
Watching upstairs.
That was science, yeah.
I was watching
Great.
upstairs.
Good evening, Mary. If you'd like to, well, we do this every year, but we've got a letter in our packet.
do,
With some
and-
motions that you need.
There are two votes that we're requesting from you tonight. One is for the police officer assignments. That is a standard thing that we do every year. The second is the ballot warrant. The copy of the ballot warrant was in your packet.
Yep.
And that's where you will see your ballot questions in the order they will appear on the ballot with their summary explanation and the yes/no explanation.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Please do.
I hereby move that the Select Board hereby delegates its authority given under Chapter 92, Section 72 of the Acts of 2022, a lot of twos there, to detail a sufficient number of police officers or constables for each building that contains the polling places for one or more precincts at every election therein, to preserve order and to protect the election officers and supervisors from interference with their duties, and to aid in enforcing the laws relating to elections, to the Chief of Police in consultation with the town clerk.
I second
Any
that
discussion on that motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There's another motion on the next page.
Madam Chair, I move that the Select Board adopt the warrant for May 19th, 2026, the annual town election as presented by the town clerk, and direct that the warrant be duly advertised and posted in accordance with Massachusetts general laws, the town of Yarmouth's charter and bylaws.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Perfect.
Thank you very much. I will just mention while I'm here, vote by mail. If anybody is looking for vote by mail for the town election, they should reach out and send in an application. Those applications have to be renewed annually. So
They have to be
the
what?
fact that they had one on file last year does not help them this year.
Renewed annually. They have to be renewed annually.
Renew annually.
So they have to request it again.
They have to request it again for the May election.
And they
so
have to do that, can they do that online, or they have to call
They
your
can
office?
do that online. There's also an application on our website, so they can either do it through the Secretary of State's office or through that application, or they can simply just send us a letter to the town clerk's office, and we can include them in the vote by mail list.
Well, great, and thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
Seems to be a little bit less of a heavy lift with this process as opposed to,
We're learning how to accomplish it better.
So are we.
And when the town election comes around, this isn't a year where we had a presidential preference primary, so those vote by mail cards for the state elections won't come out until July for the September election. So that's when we'll get flooded with the vote by mail applications for the fall cycle. So there'll be two sets that will go out, one before the September primary, one before the November general.
so if they register now for this, will it also include the,
Depends on how they request the ballot. If they request all elections this year, yes.
Okay,
If they
perfect.
only elect for the town election, then no. So it all depends on what they request on that application. And the application provides all different options, so.
excellent. Thank you for the update.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Can I ask
Yeah,
one
go.
question of Barry? I just wanted to ask, I know absentee balloting is possible. Is early voting not done for this?
So in-person early voting, we didn't opt in for in-person early voting for the town elections. We typically don't. Running in-person early voting is like running a separate election each and every day, and we simply don't have the interest in the in-person early voting for a town election or for even a state primary like we do for a general election. We actually had Mass Town Clerks Association sponsored Clerks Day on the Hill last week, so about 130 town clerks visited the State House en masse last Thursday to actually lobby for some changes and some relief under the 2022 Votes Act, one of them being a slight reduction in the in-person early voting. We understand vote by mail is here to stay, but the in-person early voting, if you look at the data, the cost per ballot for us to staff and be open for those hours is significantly larger than just a vote by mail and handling it that way. So
Understandable, yep.
so
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
we did that last week. So we'll see what happens in the next couple of legislative rounds.
Liz, did you have something?
No, thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we are back on track. I like it. Thank you, Mark. So we're on our 7:25 item of town meeting preview. All right, take it away, Bob.
Sure, thank you very much, and I just want to say for the benefit of the public that our annual town meeting preview is a service that the Select Board provides for the community, and it's part of our public outreach efforts to orient local residents and voters toward the town meeting process, and we'd like to use this as a way to engage the public, demonstrate exactly what's going to be on the town meeting, what folks are going to see on the screens and things of that nature, and what we want to really start by encouraging all of our voters to attend town meeting if at all possible. You are the legislative body of our community, and without the town meeting members, we can do nothing. So it's a very critical part of the process. And this year for the town meeting preview, I worked a little earlier to try to put together the slides that folks are going to see. It's really evolved into a major part of our town meeting that we present everything in an orderly fashion. In addition to having the town meeting warrants where everyone can follow along, we have the big screens up and folks have presented all of the information. Now, I just want to caution, this is our first draft of this. What we'll be working over the next week and a half is having departments fill in additional information. But this is substantially what voters are going to see at the town meeting. So we'll follow right along, and we'll go through and try to present the experience so folks know what they're going to be seeing. So we kick off the town meeting, and we turn it over to the town moderator, who operates the town meeting. He's the quarterback for moving us through the articles. And we'll have the call to order. We say the Pledge of Allegiance, introduce the Select Board and the Finance Committee. The chair of our Select Board will deliver some opening remarks to get the meeting going, and then the town moderator will issue some guidance. And the type of guidance that...
Can you go back, though? Was that a typo? Chair Board of Select Board?
Chair Board of Select Board, yeah, that's a typo. Okay. Chair Board. That's what happens when you change the name of your Select Board. We use the word board like 2, 3, 4 times. So we'll be going through all of the slides and correcting. You'll see various probably.
Yeah, because it's up above, too. Yeah, Board of Select Board introductions. Okay.
Thank you for that. And some of the guidance that, we have, there's a decorum. We encourage all residents to make their feelings known, speak, and in order to accomplish that, we make sure we go through the moderator, no comments or questions of a personal nature. Amendments, if anyone wants to amend an article, those have to be submitted in writing. The topic under discussion rules, you can't talk about other issues. You have to stick to each topic. During a standing, rising, or shows of hands, please display the voter card. Everyone's going to get a voter card. Don't lose that. And we also, if there are non-residents or non-voters that attend the town meeting, we have a special section that they sit in and refrain, obviously, from participating in the voting. You remember all of those rules, and everything else is absolutely simple. And from there, we get right into the articles, and they're grouped in terms of what the purpose of the article is. And again, we call them articles and warrants as if we're, I don't know, the sheriff of Nottingham. It's just the jargon that we use. A lot of it's archaic, but
Let's not make fun of the jargon.
I know, we love our jargon.
No, I mean, it's the history of town meeting goes back to the days of our founding, so.
And we're celebrating the 250th
I
anniversary.
just think that, to Bob's point, though, people who are unfamiliar get nervous by these terms that they're unfamiliar with. That's,
This is true.
you know, when.
No, I understand. Yeah, no, I,
Bob,
Trying to
can-
minimize the jargon.
Before
but-
you go on, I just wanted to know when and if we'll get a hint of what the, I know we're going to pledge the allegiance, but will there be a presentation like there was in previous town meetings? There was
What do you mean?
Chris Greeley got up and read something.
No, we're not going to do that this year.
Excellent. Thank you.
Well,
Nothing against
okay.
Chris.
Cleared that
It
right
was
up?
just-
Well, it's actually up to the moderator to
It's up to the
decide.
moderator.
It's his meeting, and he can run it, but I
Right.
mean, I like it when they have, you know, we've had performances by.
I do
by
like
some
his.
Students.
I like that.
We're going to try to have, and I don't want to spoil this in case a glitch happens, but there's a lovely young lady from our local Dennis Yarmouth Regional High School who has agreed to sing the national anthem, and you know, we're really hoping that happens. But we're not going to have the other speech. And I just want to say also, I've already met with the moderator to plan for our meeting and to prepare and to, you know, lay things out and offer support, guidance, help. And I have a second meeting tomorrow where we're going to gather other department heads as well as the town moderator and just make sure we're prepared to be crisp and explain everything, move forward. And so with that, we jump into the articles. Is we talk about the topics of discussion, and it, you know, the articles are just a simple way. Article 1, Article 2, Article 3, every separate topic is separated from the others, so we can discuss one item at a time, because if you had everything that was going on in town under one discussion, you wouldn't be able to resolve anything. So that's why we have separate articles, and we group them together. The first 10 or so, 9 articles are for the annual budget at the annual town meeting. Then we move into the second grouping of 10 or so articles, all of the capital spending. Then we move into some of the general items, and then we hit things like community preservation and bylaws. So while it looks a little bit random from the outside, it's really organized in a very straightforward way so that folks can matriculate through each of the items. Now, the Article 1, we start off with an article for budget adjustments in the current fiscal year. Now, these are any accounts that have run over. And obviously, snow and ice is the big one. It's in here for $2 million. We may be lowering that amount down. I believe that the final numbers are coming in a little under. The last number I saw was like $1,850,000 or something in that range. But it's in the high $1 millions, and we'll have an exact number. We're just finalizing everything. We still don't have 100% invoices on the trees, if you can believe that. But it's been a tremendous amount of work.
There's still trees that are down.
Yeah, and there's, you know, there's a backlog, a list trying to take care of those, and Crab Creek is among those, don't forget. So we start with Article 1, and in this article, we'll try to resolve all of the deficits in the current fiscal year. And from then,
while we're on Article 1, I read in the news today that there's a supplemental budget being moved by the governor that will include storm relief. I don't know if you've heard that or aware of that, but that's actually good news.
Yes.
and
Excellent.
and I could just say that, you know, the town of Yarmouth has been an extraordinarily strong participant in the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency's efforts to gather all of the costs. We've had reports from every single department in detail. I collated and put those together myself, which is kind of, you know, a reminiscence that I had. I really enjoyed it because, you know, one of the things I did early in my career is the same thing after Hurricane Bob. In fact,
You can't.
And they named it after Bob.
that was my nickname
Hurricane
for a
Ricknow.
couple of years after that. I was Hurricane Bob because I had to get every single cost and put those into the federal. But just to give you an update, in addition to the state is working on a relief package, we won't get 100%, but it's going to be a portion. We wound up meeting the threshold for our county, which they aggregate all of the costs countywide for the federal aid possibly. So there has been no movement to grant us federal aid, but MEMA's working on that as well. And so we met the threshold, but now we have to go through the process of trying to get some. So, you know, let's just take a look. There was a lot of storm costs that the town confronted, so we're hoping. So I'm glad that you mentioned
And there's
that.
going to be clearly some interest in that amount in terms of what happened with the snow and the tree damage and how we spent those funds. Some of us have been getting emails from one of our favorite constituents who likes to query us on this particular item.
No, and you know, if you're not close to it, it just seems
Yep.
like so much money. And it was massive, the impacts of that
How much
storm.
of that, again, was contracted out? We needed help because, as we learned at our meeting last week, we only have 5 people
Yeah.
in DPW.
And the breakdown of the 2 million is approximately 1.3 was contracted
Contracted out,
services,
right.
and the rest was overtime. So, and that includes trees and snow. So that's Article 1. And from the budget adjustments for the current fiscal year, we move immediately into the expenditures projected for the ensuing fiscal year. And on this one, we go in conjunction with every voter will be presented with the booklet for town meeting, which will be back from the printers any day now, which lists out every one of the line items that comprises the budget, so we don't scroll through it up on the screen. But folks are allowed to go through department by department, ask questions on any of the budget items, and the budget, you'll see, is split into several separate articles depending on the source of funding for the individual budget. And the first one is the consolidated municipal budget. We like to say omnibus because no one knows what that word means, but it means consolidated. And that is the all of the general fund consolidated items in the budget. The total projected for, recommended by the Finance Committee for fiscal year 2027 is $54,370,811. And that is recommended unanimously by the Select Board and the Finance Committee. And we'll review in detail every line item there. And from the consolidated general fund budget, which is Article 2,
Can I ask a question going back? I'm sorry. It says FinCom 40. Was there an abstention?
That might have just
no,
been who was
they,
there.
they don't have every single member at every single meeting.
Very good.
and
Carry on.
The members that voted were 4.
Good enough.
And for the motion, we're going to see, because it is the general fund, there are various lines that support the general fund, and some of them are larger, some of them are smaller, but it all has to fit into that 54 million. All of the funds don't come directly from the property taxes. There's a number of other funding sources, and those are laid out, things such as the ambulance fees that support the fire department and some of the PEG access fees and other fees. So there will be a detailed motion for the municipal budget that consolidates, just as the budget is, a number of smaller revenue sources that supports that budget. And from there, we move into Article 3. And what you see us begin to do now is separate out some revenue sources that are independent. And those are the town's enterprise funds. And an enterprise fund is a separate department or area of the government that operates on a self-sufficient manner. That means that all of the revenues that support that budget come from that department. And in this case, the revenues that support all of the golf expenditures, 100% of the expenditures are derived from the revenues from golf. So it stays in its own contained area, and we don't have spillover from the general fund to the golf enterprise fund. And The detail on the Golf Enterprise Fund is laid out, and that will go right up on the screen. And we'll go back to that. I want to call out, one of the questions that I had seen is, why is money going from the golf to the general fund? Didn't you just say that it stays in golf? Well, the only amount that goes from golf to the general fund is from a full cost accounting standpoint. We're required to take the funds that have been appropriated in the general fund for the benefit of golf and reimburse those. And it's similar to corporate services in private sector. It's very common. Things such as the human resources, other administrative functions are laid out in detail, and approximately $500,000 of the costs used by golf are funded in the
Those are employee
in the general
benefits,
fund.
right? Health insurance and,
their health insurance is in their own budget, but there's a laundry list of other things, the overall management, the financial, like we pay all of their bills,
Right,
take all of the money, and
Yeah. These are like the overhead charges or the indirect costs, and every municipality does this. The challenge sometimes is explaining it in English to people, because sometimes that's just a difficult concept to grasp. Why would you be charging this account for
well,
that?
if they were a business of their own, they would have those costs.
True,
So-
they're true, but like I say,
We treat them as if they're their own individual company. They're paying for services through the town.
I often find in many communities, at least the communities that I've where I've been to town meeting, it's something that often requires explanation. So it doesn't surprise me that that we're talking about it, and we need to be prepared to talk about it because it will come up.
so Article 3 is for Golf Enterprise, and that comes in at the $6.4 million. And
Can we go back to that number again, Bob?
sure,
So FY25 we were at 6.3, and for FY26 we came down to 5.1.
Well, the 400 wasn't
Okay.
funded from retained
Okay.
earnings, wasn't.
So that was the whole change.
Some of it.
But also, we'd closed down for repair on the courses, didn't we? I'm sure that there must have been a cutback in play.
Yeah, I think the change in that number is going to catch people's attention. So I think we need to be prepared to explain the differential and why, how we.
That would be up to golf.
Are you talking about from the, we're.
Well, the question's going to be,
6.3 million to the 5.1? Is that what you're talking about?
yeah, I'm talking about that line item where it says funded from retained earnings. I think that's the biggest adjustment or change. Because we went in FY25 to having 0, and then in budgeted differently, 400 and then 500. So that just might require some explanation.
Right,
okay.
and where are we on track? Do we know now where we are for revenues for FY '26?
They're ahead quite a bit. It's
Yeah.
another great year for golf.
Great.
They've really managed the experience out there, and in terms of the play and the revenue,
So increasing the budget by 800,000 is a safe number?
yes, I would say for sure. Amy, you agree? She's been going through the numbers with a fine-tooth comb.
Don't we usually have a more updated figure? Golf Enterprise Reserves?
It's right, it's at the,
That's pretty old, isn't it?
probably the last time it was certified.
No, that's current, because
2.9.
Okay.
what it goes back to, after the last town meeting. So,
That was a special.
yeah, since the special town meeting, there has been no town meetings, and that's how much money's in that account. So what we do is, it's pretty much the current balance.
Okay.
They're very accurate in accounting. So they say, boom, 11/17/25.
They ought to be
And-
helpful.
Yeah, Amy, you should be aware that this used to be, the golf we'd all get gray hairs.
Be a four-letter word.
Yeah,
I used to say
yeah,
golf's a
for the
four-letter
longest
word.
time. So your predecessor, Bill, really worked very hard with the golf department and the golf team to get the financing in a much stronger position. So a lot of work has gone into
I'll tell you,
this.
COVID really turned us around. We were having to contemplate at one point in time before COVID of what we were gonna do with the courses because they were not making money.
And the management's been great out there. You know, we've had a couple of reorganizations and Scott and the team and the,
When they opened last weekend, they said it was
Busy.
really, really busy. It
I'm
was
sure,
their
because Dennis isn't open yet.
yeah, and they said it was their busiest April
That's
they've
awesome.
ever had.
Today was a
opening
beautiful
week
day.
they've ever had.
Excellent.
That's
I
good.
saw Dennis's opening 2 days from now, so until then, we will probably be busy.
busy day today, I think.
Well, I think that goes to show, I think when I was reading about Dennis's opening, they're still struggling with also working to clean up after the storm. So, you know, I don't know if we had less damage there, but the fact that we were able to get that ship shape.
We had significant damage, but we did get some help through some contractors and through the DPW as well.
It's great.
So the next cost center that is derived, all of the expenditures are covered by the revenues within that division is the water division, so they're separate as an individual budget. And we lay out their figures as follows with a recommendation of $7,456,706 recommended by the Finance Committee. And they're sitting on a $3 million. Let's see, that is going to be updated. I'm making my notes.
Because our books say something else, right?
Yeah, that, if you see that date, that's the 24 date.
Yeah.
So that needs to change to the 25 date, which that 2.540 increases to $3,059,030.
The warrant's correct.
So in all cases, the warrant's correct. This is just our first draft of these slides, so we're going to be going through them with a fine-tooth comb. Then we move into the third of our enterprise-style budgets where all of the appropriations are covered by revenues from within the department, and that's Article 5 for the Septage Enterprise Budget. We all know what an enterprise is now, and that comes in at $1,448,000 for the ensuing year. And we have, I believe, the correct amount there.
Yep.
Good. For the septage. Next, we move into Article 6 is the fourth of our enterprise funds, and I believe the final, well, it is the wastewater enterprise fund recommended at the $1,448,313. And so,
Did we move people around? I see the wages are going from 94 to 267. So we move people out of other departments into the wastewater?
this is actually to, there's one full-time in here now, and this adds 2 additional full-time employees to help get the plant up and running. So that's Article 6. Article 7 is not an enterprise, but it's the cable television communications budget, which is funded 100% through the cable television receipts that the town takes in. And that budget is here as follows, and that covers all of the costs of operating the C3 TV for the public access, for the government access channel, and all of the communications and outreach.
The reserves are in our warrant, but they weren't there on 7.
Okay. We'll put those in. Article 8 is the Dennis Yarmouth Regional School District budget, which is recommended at $47,358,178. And we'll see a presentation on this item, and we put the motion in here. It is subject to an override of Proposition 2.5. So you see the certified budget number there, and in the explanation that we'll have up on the screen, funds the town's share of the school district based on the revised regional agreement. And the article is subject to an override of Proposition 2.5 in the amount of $1,481,348.
Did you have the recommendations?
Yep, it's in the warrant.
No, I mean, on the slide. We usually, we've been having them, that's it, right? Okay, good. Gotcha.
Got it?
Thank you.
Okey-doke. So usually the recommendation will be on the first page of it.
Right.
And so we have the explanation, but there'll be a much more detailed presentation from the school department. We don't have those slides yet, but that will be at town meeting. We'll receive more information. And then we move into the Cape Cod Regional Technical High School budget, and that is recommended at town share of $4,746,886. And this also, I have a note on this slide to say that this budget includes an override of $680,194.
So you're going to add that.
That's going to be added to the explanation slide, that amount.
Gotcha.
I have a note here, but. So with Article 9, we complete all of the projected budgets for fiscal year 2027. So the entire budget, this is the main item of the Springtown meeting, is to set all the spending for the next year. Then we move into the next, as I indicated earlier, group of 10 or so articles, which is the capital expenses for the town. And each of these recommendations come through the capital program committee. We've had detailed public hearings on them, and these are recommendations of the select board and the finance committee. And we start again with the individual enterprise funds. And the first one is the golf capital expenses. And these are laid out in detail with a total golf capital expenses of $400,000 for FY '27. And there is an explanation of each of the items, and we'll have questions, discussion on the golf capital expense. And then from there, just as we did with the budgets, it's the same process, but the capital and the operating expenses are separate. We're going to go into the water division capital expenses. And they're laid out in detail here as well, with a total of $809,000 for water division capital expenses. And then we have an additional slide that describes each item, what the purpose is, and does have that correct amount for the reserve balance in there, and that's the water division. And after the water division, we move into the police cruiser leases, and we have a lease to purchase program. It says leases. It's different than a lease that a normal person would get on a car. These are simply ways to spread the financing of the purchase of the cruisers over a 4-year period, and this helps prevent us from having a spike in any one year. And they're separated into individual groups, but very often I use the word tranche because it's another word that no one knows what it means, and it makes me sound continental, I think. A little. But the separate groups, in all seriousness, we have groups of 4, groups of 6. This is a group of 6. It's a 4-year financing mechanism, and we approve the whole lease with a 2/3 majority vote at the first year of the lease. And what you'll see is the subsequent years of the lease. So what we're actually voting on is to approve the overall payment schedule, but with appropriating just year 1. And in subsequent years, years 2, 3, and 4, you'll see these cruiser leases show up again in the town's general capital when we get to an article, a couple in. But every one of these leases requires an overall approval of entering into a lease.
Oh, that's why 2/3 majority?
That's why it's a 2/3 majority, because it is essentially a debt obligation.
Right.
Now, it's different than most of our debt obligations with the vehicle leases, and that's the one characteristic of a lease that's different than a debt, is that these leases are subject to appropriation, right? So if the town fails to appropriate, you don't still owe the money, but you have to give the car back.
Right.
So each year, the town must approve the obligation for that current year. In the first year, you approve the overall payment program. In the subsequent years, you approve the amount for each year. And if the amount is not approved, the lease would be canceled. And so, but again, you don't own the vehicle until it's paid for. So that's a little primer on how.
Newer funding source because a funding way, because I was always confused when they first started it, because you can never tie the hands of a town meeting
In advance.
in advance. So if, again, like he just said, though, if they don't approve it, they go back.
Right.
So,
Exactly. But I will say it has been, from a capital planning standpoint, a very successful endeavor to spread the costs over several years. We wind up having stable costs for police cruisers year after year, when previously the problem was it would be $600,000 or $700,000 in one year, and then 0, and then you couldn't get the $600 you'd need in the next year. What we like to do is we like to keep it steady, but you really have to look at when we started this program, interest costs were very, very low, and they're still reasonable, but you need to pay very close attention to those. And this is a discussion, an explanation of it, and we'll have the department head there to answer any questions on the vehicles. Usually we get people like to talk about the cruisers and how they work, but it's good to present this information in detail. Next, in Article 13, we move into the fire department capital expense. I can see a little glitch on that slide there we'll look at. There's we have following along, which is great. You can follow along in your book at town meeting and on the screen. To have the same information in 2 places, I think is very helpful. $1,299,000 for fire department capital. And the major item there is a $1 million replacement of engine 47, which is a pretty substantial vehicle. And we're able to, take care of these things by having that long-term capital plan. And these are funded from the, partially from the capital stabilization fund and then the ambulance receipts. So what you see happening when you have a large engine for $1 million, we take the money out of capital stabilization, but the ambulance fund pays us back over 5 years or so. And these engines have an extraordinarily long life, so it's good to do that because that way we don't completely deplete the ambulance receipts in 1 year. You know, we front the money and then they pay it back. So at the end of the day, we still have a healthy capital stabilization fund. And that's Article 13. And there's a description of every item. They do a good job of laying these things out. And they also are good at town meeting and explaining things and answering any questions. So we have a series of slides for the capital explanations. Then we move into the, what we call the consolidated capital expense article, and this funds the various departments. It's not all from the same source. I want to point out that various sources that we have involved here is one of the largest sources is a $1.1 million raise and appropriate, comes from property taxes. An override was previously passed in the year 2015 for highway improvements, roadway maintenance, and that amount we've managed to restore to the budget and keep. And in addition, there's $2.6 million from free cash that funds these items. And they're listed all out in the book, but we have managed to list them all out here as well. There's a detailed list. It totals 23 items. And as you can see, that number 4, that's your $1.1 million in roadway improvements that was the subject of the 2015 override. So that's in there. And each one of these programs, as the board is aware, was selected and ranked by the Capital Program Committee. They have a detailed ranking rubric. It's another word that sounds a little special when you say it, but it's just the system that they use for evaluating these projects, and they assign scores and rankings. And these are listed in rank order, and anything lower than 23 did not make it for funding. And so we can have as much detail on any one of these individual items.
Do we not usually put up the total free cash?
No, we
Don't.
We do not. But that's a question that someone usually asks the finance director, and she loves giving that answer.
Okay,
It's
fine.
like one of her favorite things.
Well, we don't want to spoil that. Okay.
Next,
Marcus, Article 14, number 21, front steps improvement, front hall of Town Hall.
Yes. Oh, because you fell.
Both of us did.
We'll have to make sure
I
you
fell
get
in a different place, but see, I have less experience, so, but I'll be in future budgets.
Okay.
and then Article 15 is the library construction. That is a 2/3 vote, and there's also going to be a presentation associated with the library construction. We print on the slide the official explanation that is in the warrant. People can read that in the warrant, but, you know, it's kind of dry in a slide, and it's hard to read up on the screen, but that is printed in the warrant, the explanation. And so we'll have more discussion and details on the library. And again, that one is subject to a debt exclusion, which is different from an override in that it only excludes the amount from Proposition 2.5 that's required to pay the bonds. And as we've discussed, the bonds is a 20-year declining program, so that it's a declining amount over 20 years, and then after it's paid for, any exemption from 2.5 disappears, and the tax rate goes back to its normal level. But that was
Now,
also a ballot
you had
item.
mentioned after our library presentation at the senior center that you would be doing somewhat of you'd be explaining that ramping down of costs over time.
Yes, we're going to have some slides in detail what the impact of that project is, what the impact of other projects is, what the capital planning shows. Just, you know, walk people through so they can
And would
make up
that
their mind.
take place here?
Yes.
Gotcha.
when we get at this article, they're going to present the needs. They have asked me to present the finance part of it. Happy to, and then, folks will be able to take action on it, ask any questions. And so that's 15. Then we move into Article 16. Here, we're getting into some of the general items. There's still some more capital to go, but we see some of the items we're trying to work with these departments on any additional articles they have. And one article we need to do is grant the National Grid easements to install gas to service the new wastewater facility. And that is so that it runs the generator. You do not want a wastewater treatment plant that doesn't have the ability of having backup.
Yeah, they switch back and forth sometimes from different.
And also recall, at the last town meeting, we approved electrical easements. So the power to these facilities is critical because they need to keep operational. So that's Article 16. There's no money in that, and it has a explanation, and it's also in the article. Then we move into Article 17. Now, this is another borrowing article to be paid for by the septage, and it is a supplemental appropriation. If you'll require, we appropriated $4.2 million, I believe, in 2025, and this is an additional $2.8 million. There are 2 tanks, and the first appropriation only provided enough money to fund about a tank and a half when the bids finally wound up coming in. So with these additional funds, we'll be able to rehabilitate both of these equalization tanks. And again, I mean, the simple truth is the toxic environment that exists with septage in these concrete tanks over the last 25 years has eaten the surfaces away. And so what you're doing is rebuilding the surface of a tank that holds the human waste. So
That'll pass unanimously, I think. Nobody wants to see the consequence of neglecting it.
And, the other thing that probably will be pointed out at town meeting, by going through this extensive rehabilitation of a 25-year-old facility, you're able to essentially double, this place has been rebuilt, and you can double the life of this facility. And that saved millions of dollars over the life of, if we had to build a new one of these facilities onto the wastewater treatment plant, this saved a tremendous amount. And I think it shows, some great thriftiness and to use this facility and keep it in use. And this is how it's done. And so we have a little bit difficult to read the explanation, but it does show the detail of the $4.4 million that we've allocated in 2025 and how that works.
And it is 2/3 majority for this one?
It's a 2/3 majority because this would be, the $2.8 million would be a debt that would be paid for over time.
And we had a 2/3 majority on the National Grid easement, was that?
And on the National Grid easement, it's a 2/3 majority. The things that trigger a 2/3, number one, if you're taking on any debt. Number two, if you are giving an interest in real property, and that's the easement.
Okay.
So those are really the 2 rules of thumb on.
Thank you.
And we've already been able to get some of the detail because we had it on file of these tanks and where they are, what they look like. And so we'll be able to walk people through. It helps having the pictures. I feel strongly about
Hard to
that.
see it through that anaerobic digester.
Oh, I think that was a joke.
I know that, the digestion. So that moves us into Article 18, which is the transfer of $400,000 that was in the original Legacy 2021 town meeting vote that we had for some of the initial design costs of wastewater. Now we're repurposing those funds to go into the expenses for completing phase one because the design's already completed, so we have 400,000 left over. It's a perfect source of funds to repurpose to move into the construction end of things. And this has the detail, 400,000 of those costs related to the collection system. And this balance will be used for engineering costs related to Bayberry Hills discharge. Then we move into, the next article is to actually fund the Bayberry Hills discharge program, which is for design at this stage, and the amount is $1.5 million for Bayberry Hills discharge design. And again, for any of the folks at home, this is not to design a golf course. This is to design a retrofit of one of our town golf courses to accept the groundwater discharge of the treated effluent from the wastewater treatment facility, which is clean water and can be used for irrigation as well as deep well injection. So that entire system will be designed on the Bayberry Hills, and this will grant the town an adequate amount of groundwater discharge capacity, which was a big problem up until we developed this alternative.
Can we just talk about the funding for this? Because it's kind of vague in here. I'm assuming that the article before that has the 1.9 million left and 400 is going to be transferred to that the 1.5 remaining goes to Article 19, but I don't see where it says that. How are we funding Article 19?
So they're going to transfer funds from the wastewater stabilization account.
So it just says the available funds. So all of it's going to come from from what was left over in that other article?
There's two separate articles. There's the wastewater stabilization is where we put a lot of these funds, not from the original article.
I think there's a typo there with the 2/3 majority on the slide. It's not in our book.
Well, I think this is a 2/3 majority. I'm going to double check it, but unless it's changed and I missed it, another one of those 2/3 thing is the appropriation from the stabilization fund.
Okay.
But that might be one of those municipal modernization things, so I'll just make a note to double check it. But I wrote it in.
In your warrant, you wrote it in?
No.
Slides, but it's not in the warrant.
Right, I wrote it in on the slide, because I think it's a 2/3 vote. It's just something
Okay. Vicky.
Okay. Then we move into, so there's more discussion of that, lots of detail. Article 20 is to set aside funds for wage adjustments for FY '27 as a result of settlement of collective bargaining agreements that have not been settled yet, and that currently includes the police department, primarily that we're in collective bargaining, and trying to set aside some funds and to, if there's any other wage adjustments that need to be made. And that is detailed here. It's a standard article we usually do every year. Mm-hmm. Article 21 is additional funds for the Matakees building maintenance costs, an additional $200,000, and this should, we hope, get us to the point of, I know we'll be working on an RFP to try to stimulate some public-private use of that facility, and we have some recommendations of the MUC that will be in front of the select board. But in the meantime, we need to make sure that we're continuing to take care of that facility. And then we move into Article 22, which is a transfer and sale of surplus property. And that is another 2/3 vote. And this is a sale of land of low value pursuant to a bid process in conjunction with the town's policy to dispose of town property, which is unbuildable small lots that are located in subdivisions adjacent to other residences that may be of value to the residents but has no value to the town. And so this is, we're
You
wrapping
need to
up.
add it to the book.
Yeah, the
Two-thirds.
two-thirds vote isn't mentioned.
Page 26.
The book's printed already, but they'll make sure that when they take up the article, the moderator will let the public know that it's a two-thirds
Yeah, I don't
majority.
think people really pay much attention to that, unless it's a real
Hot item.
nail biter.
Yeah.
But just to be prepared.
So we'll have it up here on the slide indicating a two-thirds vote for sure. And then we move into some of the statutorily restricted funding. And there's really two key categories, which is that Article 23 is the Tourism Revenue Preservation Fund. And that is a special act that requires a special appropriation. And the recommendation is here for the amount of $565,264 with the breakdown in the book and also up on the screen. And after the Tourism Revenue Preservation Fund, as an explanation of that, we move into the community preservation articles, and there's a series of these articles for each one of the key areas for which funds are restricted under the Community Preservation Act. And the first article establishes just the general budget that we have for the whole entire year. And from the setting up the estimated revenue, we move into, and again, we see CPA revenues estimated at 2.25 million. And we estimate a 10% match at 205,000.
10% match.
And then we move into the individual categories of community preservation, and it starts with the affordable housing projects that are funded under community preservation. And they're listed out. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 projects. I can see a little glitch on the bottom of that slide. The total amount is a little blocked of $895,000 projected for affordable housing projects. And each project is outlined and will be presented by the committee. Project A, B, Project C, D, and E. Article 26.
Will they have slides for any of those? Or just talk about it?
I'm going to try to get some slides. Yeah.
Great.
So we send these over to CPA and see what they can come up with some nice pictures. I like to see pictures if
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
possible.
Yeah, that's what they usually do.
Good.
And then Article 26 is recreation. And there's one single recreation program for the Packet Landing Resiliency. And the description of the program. Then we move into Article 27 is the Open Space Reserve, which the Open Space Project is the Kroll Pond Restoration Phase 2, $140,000.
That's Article 27? So we're going to make our recommendation from the floor on that one?
And the board already made recommendations, and so we've included those recommendations on the slide.
Okay.
So we'll be able to present those, but the booklet at the time of the
I remember that
publication.
now. That's right. Yep.
Was on town meeting floor.
Very
But
good.
this is great, since we now have the recommendations, we can put them up on the slides. We don't have to wait and have people not know what they are.
Gotcha.
And then Article 28 is the historic preservation. And that is projects A, B, and C that are outlined here. And those are discussed in detail. And then we move into Article 29, which is the zoning article, VOCD setbacks on Route 28. And of course, you know, working with Kathy, she's always a step ahead of me, which I really love about her. We've got this slide, and we've got the detail, and we've got the explanation. But in addition to that, she's come up with some great graphics to support that she'll be able to walk through, and these are the Village Center overlays. When they say VCOD, that's the Village Center Overlay District. There's the map. There's some of the Mass DOT sections, the reason for the problem, how it came about, what the layouts look like, where those taking strips are, and how that whole thing works, with the explanation on the side. And by the time she walks everyone through this, people will know. And then there's a little pros and cons kind of thing about that. And so that takes us through the zoning. And we'll be working to get, on some of the other articles, a little more detail in terms of the slides, to just get as much information out there and hopefully answer questions before people come up with them. And from there, that is the thank you for
Wasn't that nice?
participating. And that's what folks can expect at town meeting. It's a simple, straightforward process, but, we really encourage folks to come out, ask questions, get answers, and participate in, supporting the town and setting forth our town government.
Great, thank you, Bob.
Welcome.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Bob, will any of these have handouts for people as they come into town meeting? I just ask that because it seems like people get restless in town meeting, and they actually read every piece of paper that they have when they get restless.
I know the library had a handout.
Yeah.
The library might be doing handouts, but I think that might be the only.
Town moderator has to approve any handouts for town
Oh.
meetings, so if somebody wants to do it, they have to contact our, Mr.
Oh, I see,
Muddy.
but like the town departments for these aren't doing handouts.
No, we
Okay.
try to get the town departments to present the information in the warrant and the presentation, and
Okay.
All right, so we'll move on to assignment of articles. There's 29 articles, and there's 5 of us, so we need 6, 6, 6, 6, and 5. So typically, the chair takes the first, the budget one, so I will take 1 through 6. Who wants to take 7 through 12?
I'll take those.
Mark?
I'm willing to take whatever nobody else wants.
Okay, we got the fire department, capital expense, we got 13 through 18.
I'll do that.
Okay, Dorcas. And then we've got Bayberry Hills through the first, we'll say 19 through 24.
Now, that's CPA.
Yeah, so, but we still have to, we'll still have to make our recommendation. We don't have to move it, so.
Anything? Okay.
Same thing with zoning. We'll just make our recommendation, and they'll move the articles. So who wants to take 19 through 24?
Well, I will, I guess.
Joyce, are you okay with 25 through 29?
I am.
All right, so that's how we'll roll. So Tracy's 1 through 6, Mark will be 7 through 12, Dorcas will be 13 through 18, Liz will be 19 through 24, and Joyce is 25 through 29.
Great.
That makes it easier. I like it when they're together. Unless there's something
I'll
that
take care of
somebody-
the sewer.
And we're gonna have
No,
a
it's
book
discharge.
with the motions
Yep, we'll have everything.
lined up for you, and
Yeah, that's
that's
always
kind of being
great.
worked on right now.
And are there any other articles that are left that we need to take a position on prior to our pre-town meeting?
I don't think so.
Okay,
I
great.
think we're all set.
So we've done that. All right, great. Board and committee actions.
Okay, well, short and sweet. I suggest that we accept Chris Peterson's resignation from the Recreation Commission with thanks.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
That's it. Oh, my goodness. I move that we approve the minutes. Is that okay, Tracy, if I continue? April 22nd, 2025, which was the housing workshop meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any amendments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
I move we approve the minutes from May 6, 2025 board meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, upcoming agenda review. All right, so today is April 14th. Next week is Patriots' Day. We have no meeting. We have an annual town meeting on April 28th. We will have a pre-town meeting posted for any last-minute items that we need to discuss. That will be held right before town meeting.
5 PM, right?
Yes, that's what we usually do.
And then on May 5th, we have a swearing in of new officers and sergeant. We have a amusement hearing for Scally's, a hearing for J-Mart. Is that the same one that we're waiting for a decision on? Did a decision come on that?
No.
It's different.
That is different.
Okay. All right, a hearing for Captain Parker's communication plan, packet landing resiliency project, a recap of town meeting, and our town administrator evaluation. All right, so I'm gonna need those. I know I emailed Joyce and Mark yesterday. Perfect. Thank you. Yep. We'll get that all together.
I had to put it in a contrasting color because if it were all in white.
You wouldn't find it?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you want the envelope back? I just need the paper.
Oh, I don't need it back, that's fine.
Okay, well, thank you for doing that. Appreciate it.
Working at the hospital, those envelopes.
We have to have a event fees for Parker's River Landing, but that's in the,
Do you want to sign that?
Oh, sure. Oh, duh, okay.
did we advertise that yet? The fees for Parker's River Landing?
It's on the consent agenda, isn't it? We had it on the
Yeah.
consent agenda.
I don't
Oh, yeah, no,
believe we did.
we haven't advertised the fees that you talked about last week.
We're doing a waiver for that event, the
Right,
first event.
but we were gonna.
We'll bring
approve
the fees, we're gonna bring the fees back. I have to check, I don't know what date they set for that.
Right, I'm just reminding. And then, I think I had it, and I think we had a little discussion about it, but did we want to consider the letter, I don't think we do, open meeting and public documents as per Harris Contos? He brought that up as another letter possibility. I think we had decided we're not in the business of taking up every issue at this point. Does that ring any bells for anybody?
It does.
Am I right in saying, no, we're not going to have it on the agenda?
Well, I mean, I think we haven't even got the other one. The ink's still wet on the last one. We want them to take our,
Leave it as a,
We're gonna lie quiet for a while.
yeah, we gotta prioritize what it is. If we keep sending them, I'm not sure we're gonna get
that's what
any.
we said last time, was that they're going to get tired of hearing from us.
Right.
We get a little less.
Believe me, I, in terms of open meeting, the records and, I always have a problem with our legislature that makes rules for us and exempts themselves from it. So I think that they should follow the same public records rules that we have, but, I mean, I'm not sure a letter's gonna do any good. I think it's got a little ways to go to work through the
And then on
bills
the,
that are up there.
on the future agenda possibilities, we wanted to have something on energy manager and the money and how that, whether we're going to be able to keep that
It's
money.
on May 12th.
Is it? Okay, good. Excellent. And then, an update on PFAS?
We have that too, coming.
Oh, it's on June 9th. Excellent. Woo-hoo. And then I wanted to start talking about town administrator search. I don't want to wait until,
Well, first of all, we should wait until after the election. My opinion, we've never made those types of discussions. Not that I don't know that the board's gonna change, but if it does,
right.
new
No,
members
that
should
makes sense.
participate in that, number one. Number two, I'm not sure we're at that point. I think that's a discussion that we need to have. Are we saying that that's what we want, or are we gonna let Bob make that decision? I think professionally, I would like Bob to make his own announcement publicly before we,
Agreed.
I mean, I'm not sure where he's heading, and we're making assumptions. He asked for a 1-year contract, we gave it to him. So are we assuming he's done? I don't know. I mean, I don't, unless somebody else
We
has
could
any,
persuade him to stay.
has any other information. He hasn't said anything
Non-public?
further, so
Has
I,
it gone public? Okay.
Would it make sense anyway to have that after our goal setting? Because we do goal setting and then we'd figure where
Even beyond
future hires might fit in that?
I think you have to have that conversation before you do goals, because it's part of that conversation.
Right, and if the fact of the matter is if Bob makes that decision that he doesn't want to be considered after a year, then we need to start a process, so.
Maybe if we swore we would not have the same level of blizzards next year, or for the next couple years, he would stay.
No hurricanes either.
There you go.
I could go for a nice hurricane.
All right, but it's on our radar, Liz. I'm not sure where it's gonna go, but I would like it to happen after the election. That's the way
sounds
we've
good.
always made those decisions. Anything else? You got any more notes over there? Liz? No, I'm talking to you.
Oh. No, I
the keeper of the notes.
I missed some comments on the minutes, but it's too late.
Okay. All right. So, individual items. Anybody have any individual items?
I had one thing.
No items.
I had one thing that I wanted to, you ready for me?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, please, please.
I get up on Tuesday mornings ready for you, Liz. I get a good night's sleep on Monday.
I think that's marvelous. I noticed when I was reading the minutes from the presentation that Kathy did on the LCP, Local Comprehensive Plan, that the material that in the minutes, the material is fantastic for our goals meeting, because it really laid out where we're at with future challenges in Yarmouth with everything, with our preservation. So I
There's a lot of
recommend
those.
everybody bring
Yeah.
the minutes to the goals meeting.
Well, I think a lot of those documents, the LCP and the housing plans and our visioning
Yeah.
project, those are all things that come into play when we have our
Yes.
goals discussion.
Yes, indeedy.
So we'll need to set a date for that, right? Do we have,
No, we have that.
let me see, it's a Saturday? Is it a
Yep.
Saturday? Oh, boy, I hope I didn't, oh, it's tentative, July 18th. Okay. I'm gonna check my calendar.
Oh, there.
So we should, we don't need to do it tonight, but we should start thinking about that and maybe have a couple of possible dates. I really thought our facilitator was a nice upgrade last year, and I'd like to try to book the same one,
Yeah.
because he's got a real, just great head on his shoulders for all of the issues we face and everything, so I like that a lot.
And he also wants a sequel, like, do we still have the same favorite animals?
I'm sure
People
he will.
change.
All right, anybody else have any individual items?
No,
Mark?
ma'am.
No.
Joyce? Okay, we're
Nope.
moving on to consent agenda.
Move that we accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Bob, take it away.
All right, just a couple of things I really wanted to mention is, I wanted to give you a brief update on the South Shore Drive
Please.
issues, because the contractor is a little bit behind what the schedule that they gave us. They were proposed last Friday to be completed with the paving, the first coat of paving, and cleaned up out there. As you know, South Shore Drive has been, more of a moonscape in recent months, and with all the restaurants and condos and everybody opening up, it's a big issue, and I know it's an issue that the Select Board has, a tremendous amount of interest in. And so, I do want to say, as of Friday, the place looked terrible. I was appalled. But as of right now, the South Shore Drive is paved. That first coat of pavement is down there, so it's cleaned up, it's accessible. You can get from the parking lot across the street to the areas.
Is the road open, Bob?
And the road is open. The road is open, okay? And it's open all evening, and so I think for the restaurant opening and the condo opening, and I've also had several chats with the condo folks down there. They're very nice and just concerned, and our whole team's been doing a good job, at least keeping people up to speed. We're frustrated because, when the contractor gives us a date, we're going to be done by paving, and then they don't make it. We're having that information on all of our communications. But then it doesn't happen. It's like, well, why didn't you make them do it? And, a lot of people don't know that, we're not allowed to dictate the means and methods. We just have our oversight. But at any rate, the schedule is for everything to be done and this contractor to be finished.
What day?
May 21, right, by Memorial Day. Now, are they going to make it? We're willing to bet there's going to be some things we're not happy with, but it will be substantially complete. That's the term Jeff and I were talking about. He gave me this afternoon. They'll be substantially complete by May 21, and we're not going to let them off the hook for anything that's not done perfect. But the road's open right now. We should be okay tomorrow, and we got May 21. I want to let you know, just this afternoon, I attended a meeting at the airport that I'm on a round table for noise. Bless you.
Thank you.
Bless you.
And Chris Greeley and I attended on behalf of the town, along with Ron Price from QED, our consultant. And we're going to put on the next agenda our specific recommendations for that. Remember the instrument departure, automated instrument departure, which is, way more than half of the flights, can all be set to not go over the West Yarmouth areas. And so that's something that we're actively working on. And I will say we haven't, made any changes yet, but we haven't been thrown out by the airport folks. They've been very nice to meet with us, and we're going to continue, and I'll keep you posted on every meeting we do there. Before we go,
While you're on that,
yes.
who's the new airport manager?
John Nelson.
Isn't it Mike Nelson?
Mike Nelson.
Mike Nelson, and also there's Sean Driscoll is the assistant.
Okay.
So we're working with,
Things better in terms of the communications and
Yes.
relationship?
Yeah, they've invited us in. They agreed to set up we call it a round table. It's a task force. We're studying the issues. Again, we just started. We haven't made progress, but we're going to be discussing community outreach, all of the things that we had asked for previously. So, so far, we're making progress. And I thank Sean and Mike.
And Chris Greeley really deserves.
Yeah, Chris is awesome. She's my partner in crime. We sit there and
she's formidable and very, very on top of them.
and if you ever, we'll bring you up to speed because I know when she can't make it, you're the backup too. So thank you for that.
Yep.
And I did want to mention too, if I know not everyone was able to make it, but last Friday, the Cape Cod Chamber held a legislative breakfast, and my hat is really off to Mark Forrest. He did such a great job being the moderator for a panel of the town managers to discuss some of the issues related to, public service on Cape Cod, as well as how we support the business community. And it was great. We had a manager from Brewster, Falmouth, Orleans, even the Yarmouth guy was there, and we each did a little section. I know, and it was nice. It was a great program. But I just wanted to mention, to see in a regional context, Mark was really great. So I thought it reflected very well on, the municipal government and the town of Yarmouth as well. So
Yeah, we got the best panel. Yeah, we did well. Bob was great, by the way.
That's not
talked
He
about
didn't even mention his own role in the panel.
No, that's why I'm jumping in here.
Yeah,
Because
good for you.
He helped talk. What we wanted to do in this discussion was to sort of highlight a number of different priorities. And I think one of the things that Bob was able to reflect on is he added to what the other managers had to say about some of the challenges facing the town, but he also sort of emphasized some of the things that we do that are very unique here that involve creating a public-private partnership with the business community, particularly our tourism promotion fund, and that it's important for communities to find ways to sustain those kinds of relationships and build those bridges. So I thought it was a good piece and a good discussion. The reality is that that all of the towns are, on the Cape are facing some really serious challenges. We got overrides virtually in every town.
Yeah.
And there are some towns that are off Cape that are having huge overrides.
As you all saw from
yeah.
my brother's town in Marblehead.
Yeah, Marblehead.
A lot of them.
Marshfield, take a look at Marshfield. What a mess that town is in. They've got a $7 million override that they're looking at. Charlie Sumner's been the interim town administrator, and Charlie's a friend. We talk all the time.
In Marshfield?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And that board is in turmoil.
Oh, wow.
And so we're not alone. I guess the point I'm getting at is we're not alone in terms
No.
of dealing with some financial challenges, but we're probably in a much better, I know people might find this hard to believe, but we're actually in a much better spot than a lot of other communities in terms of weathering the fiscal challenges ahead. So,
Well, and
Last item.
sorry, I just wanted to also give you a shout out because at the library planning, building committee presentation, and you were also helping us understand where we are relative to the other towns. And that was important information because, yeah, we're still, even though we have to have an override, we're still one of the lowest tax bases.
Well, knock on wood with it, we hope we stay that way, because remember when we talked about that, the big factor is the economy here.
Yeah.
We don't have the income that a lot of these communities have.
Right.
But I did want to mention before we go, and I know it seems like I've been talking all night, we had our second briefing on that Route 6 bridge with Mass DOT. And I know there's been a lot of, talking, so members of the public that haven't been keyed right in, their initial proposal was to close down the westbound bridge on Route 6 over the Bass River for pretty much all truck traffic. And, we were alarmed. I mean, that's a very alarming news. In the second briefing, they seem to have backed off that tremendously to indicate that the ban on that westbound lane is going to be for emergency vehicles only. But the bad news there that includes our, the fire trucks. But there's a waiver process that we're seeking to get waivers for our fire trucks so that they'll be allowed to use that bridge. And so that was one major change. Now, the second major change that I think is even better than that is that they first said the problem with the bridge, it's not the supports, it's the decking material. So if you picture the bridge on its supports, we go underneath it and we look how horrible it looks down at the water line, but it's the cement deck up top that's falling apart. And at first they said that, they didn't have a way of fixing that, so it was going to be permanently restricted until it was replaced, which God only knows how long that's going to take. At the second briefing, they indicated that they've developed with an engineering firm a deck strengthening protocol that they can implement potentially this summer. So that would mean that the restrictions for the emergency vehicles on the bridge would last through the summer, and then they would be able to strengthen that deck, and we'd be able to use the bridge until they replace it. That's the latest information that we have, and I think that takes some of the alarm out of it, but I think we're going to have to follow that issue very, very closely.
I didn't understand it to be just emergency vehicles.
I didn't either.
So I know that it shows that, but I'm not sure. It says, well, maybe.
They showed the sign that they were going to post, and it said emergency vehicles are what's restricted.
That doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense.
That doesn't make any sense. Why would they limit it to just, that doesn't make any sense to me. But, okay, I hope you're right. I didn't see it that way.
Well, you got to admire the fact that, like, you terrified them so much they went out and, invented deck strengthening technology.
Well, I thought our select board members, the chairman especially, was very frank and open in the comments, and on the first go round, and even though I felt Mass DOT, could very well have involved the communities a little stronger in the planning stages of it, I felt that they listened to the communities. And they gave us an opportunity to express our concerns, and then they took that into account. So, I do acknowledge that for sure. So that's all I have.
Situation that could change.
Yeah.
Let's leave it at that. Yeah, I mean, for them to sort of blow off the pilings not being connected to the marine environment and not carrying loads, I found the whole discussion, let's put it this way, it didn't inspire a great deal of confidence.
Let us hope there won't need to be a fatality before they recognize.
No, I think what's gonna happen is they're gonna continue to update us, and we get more information in iterations from them, particularly after they give us the inspection report on the other section of the road.
Oh, yeah.
Roadway. And that could be concerning.
Okay, anything else, Bob?
Nope, that's all I have.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
You did it.
Recording stopped.